Welcome back to Power CEO's Truth Behind the Business. We're going to dive right back in because this conversation has been so important. Already you've got action steps. You know I'm a coach at heart, and if you're not taking action, then we don't get anywhere. And just before the break, Jared said, you need to work on your sales. If you up-level your sales, it's going to help you grow your business. That was one of the key action steps that we talked about amongst many others. But Jared, I want to shift the gears just a little bit because we've talked about startup, we've talked about how to find capital to grow our business and what it takes to grow our business. We've talked about sharpening our sales acumen. I want to talk now about my entrepreneurs out there who maybe they've just had an exit and they have a lump sum coming, or they're in that process, or maybe they're generating a few $1,000,000 in profits, and they need to consider diversification. So they're looking at, what do I do with this money so that I can put my money to work for me? How do people who are entrepreneurs at heart, who have not really moved into that, I'm great at making income, but I haven't really generated wealth, how do they know where to put their money, how to spot a good deal, what to look for, and how can they take their entrepreneurial skill set to make them excellent investors?
So it's interesting because what has allowed you to be so successful as an entrepreneur is the same thing that's going to enable you to be a really strong investor, which is extreme discipline. So it's critical that you have discipline, and you should meet with any financial service provider that you're working with. But what's critical, and this is actually what we do with our portfolio companies, is you need to define allocations and never negotiate against the allocation. So if you're allocating 15% of your portfolio to multifamily real estate and 15% of your portfolio to early stage tech, you need to ensure at all times that 15% of your net worth is allocated into that specific domain. And it's a discipline to do it, no different than the discipline that you took to get to the point of having this capital in the first place. The other thing that I encourage all investors to do is that if you can be a strategic investor in an opportunity, just go all in on it. And the way I do it is, whenever I invest in an early stage company, I want to ensure that I will be able to bring 4 times the amount of top line revenue to that business compared to the investment I'm making. So if I'm investing $250,000 into a business, I want to know through my relationship capital, my ecosystem, my sphere of influence, that I can influence at least $1 million of top line revenue in order for me to write the $250,000 check, because that's my safeguard. That's my hedge against the downside, is I'm going to make a few introductions that go a very long way to increase the valuation and increase the certainty of that actual business.
I think that's tremendous advice. And something that we always talk about is when you first break into investing, you tend to invest in what you know. However, talk a little bit about when if you were a tech entrepreneur and you invest 100% in tech, is there a risk to being 100% in the tech industry from an investment and an entrepreneurial standpoint? And what are some of the things that you should consider outside of there? Because that's what we tend to see, right? We tend to see, yeah, I'm really good at this. Here's something that I really, really, really know, so I'm going to put my money there. But now what if something happens in the economy with tech? Like, we just went through this. We literally just saw the tech industry mature.
Yes.
It had not done that. And the only thing that's saving it now is AI and the novelty of technology. But we now have a mature tech industry. So if I'm only a tech entrepreneur and I'm only invested in tech, and and tech's dropping and valuations are dropping, then I don't have the same security as if I've been diversified. So talk a little bit about, how do we get into the next level? How do we use our skill sets and transfer them into our investment strategy?
So if you're investing in tech, you might need a 10 to 12 year horizon on those investments. Those are just longer term investment opportunities. And it's great that you allocate a portion, and maybe even a large portion, of your investable assets into tech if that's what you know. But then you want to make sure you're also doing the other extreme, which would be like multifamily real estate, which is a great asset class to have. It's stable, it's certain, and it's going to offer you something that traditionally tech doesn't, which is cash flow. And the whole goal to really building wealth is that you can live, like, your quality of life is offset by the passive income from cash flow from things like multifamily real estate. So as an example, if you have $10 million invested into multifamily real estate and you're getting 10% distributions over the course of the year, which would be really high, but to use that as the math, you're getting $1 million to live off of that year. And that's just what you live off of. And if you can start living within the means of what passive income you can earn from your cash flowing investments, and then you have your home run investments into tech that have a 10 to 12 year horizon, you've set yourself and your family up really well. Outside of that, there's all different things you can do with life insurance policies and things like that that are great investment vehicles that would take a lot more time to dig into. I encourage you to find a financial service provider that you can really trust, that has a vision beyond what they're told to sell you, so they can actually make really good investment decisions for you, so that you can really lay a foundation and not have to worry about money. Because that's the quickest way to lose freedom, is to stress about your bank account. So if that bank account is just solid, you have cash flow coming in from your investments, that's what you're living off of, you have some of the longer term plays in tech, you're really in a good position.
Yeah, I really like that perspective, and I love that you hit the short term, the midterm, and the long term. Truthfully, and you talked about cash flow versus what are you realizing on the long term side of your asset allocation. So I absolutely concur. Get your advisor. Get the people who know more than you. If people are looking and they're like, you know what, I'm not really investing in tech. I want to start. I know that you have an excellent framework for that. Like, speak to those people. Like, what should they be thinking about and listening to? We are driving to the close, so I want you to also share with them, how can they reach out to you if they have questions about investing in tech, or if they're a startup in tech?
So here's the quick rule, and there's a lot of other things you should look at as well. If you would use it, you might as well own it. So just let that be your rule when you're investing in tech. If you would be someone that would pay the monthly fee for that solution, you might as well own that solution. And that's just a good baseline with regards to investing. We have a huge announcement that we're making. We have a big, bold move to become the next era of venture. And I want to invite your audience to participate in this announcement, which is coming right in the new year. If you head over to my website, jaredyellin.com, JaredYellin.com, right there, you're going to see we have a really interesting newsletter. I encourage you to sign up for it. I'm like super anti-newsletter, which is why this is not really a newsletter. We call it the guide to have it all. I'm just transparent on how I live my life with regards to my relationship with my wife, and how I show up as a dad, and how I show up as a leader of a relatively large organization now that has an immense amount of responsibility. I talk about some of the meetings that I'm having right now with some of the most iconic entrepreneurs and investors in history that want to participate in this really big announcement that's coming right in the new year. So if you're someone that wants to start getting involved in tech, or maybe even have a tech idea, go to jaredyellin.com, sign up for our newsletter, which is your guide to have it all. It's really so much more than a newsletter, and just get in our ecosystem so that we can find various ways to work together to achieve more and to really create some positive change in the world.
Awesome. And I think that's an amazing resource. Pick that up. Make sure you reach out to Jared. He is a tremendous resource. And I wouldn't have him here. I wouldn't have him here sharing this with you if I didn't believe in what he was sharing. So, Jared, we do have just a couple more minutes, and I love to leave my audience with an action step that they can take today, right now, that is going to move them powerfully forward. And so think about when you were starting and you were that napkin. Give me an action step for the people with an idea on a napkin, and then give me an action step for the person who's looking at, hey, maybe it's time to start thinking about diversification and investing.
So if you have an idea on a napkin, I'm going to share a statement with you that I've actually shared probably like 3,000 or 4,000 times now, which is never let anyone other than you execute on your dream. And what I mean by that is, I'm sure you know someone, maybe you're even the someone who says, I had the idea for Instagram before Instagram, or I had the idea for Uber before Uber. But the difference is someone other than you executed on your dream. So just never let it happen again. So the action step: Upwork, hire somebody for $500 to $5,000 to create a clickable prototype, and then do 100 sales demos of your dream. Start collecting real data to justify and validate your thesis. For the investor who says, okay, I'm heavily invested in multifamily real estate, I got tons of cash flow, but I want to invest in something that creates a lot of impact in the world, that's really innovative, that's super cutting edge. What I'd encourage you to do is find something that you would pay for and be a user of, and then reach out to the organization to see if they're fundraising so that you can invest in it. There's no better thing to invest in with regards to your first investment in tech than something that you use anyway, because you're just going to become evangelical for it. You're going to talk about it. You're an ambassador. You're going to become part of the biz dev team, even though that's not what you signed up for, just because you're so passionate about it. So identify things that you're willing to pay for, and then let that be your first tech investment. And I have a feeling it'll be a gateway for you to become a pretty active investor in tech.
Fantastic action steps. Thank you so much, Jared, for spending time with us, with my audience today. I really appreciate it. Go to jaredyellen.com. Is that correct? Yeah, jaredyellen.com.
Yes.
Get on his newsletter, get that information, start the process. Today is the day you take action. He gave you perfect action steps. Today is the day, not tomorrow, not next week, because if you wait, then it's just going to become another thing that you listen to. Oh yes, I listened to the show, I listened to the podcast, and I never did anything. Action is where the magic happens. If you have to go back and re-listen to some of this, go for it. But today is the day you take action. You start taking action to move yourself forward so that we can improve and increase that trajectory and get you towards your time, money, location, all the freedom like Jared was talking to us about. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Unfortunately, all good things do come to an end, including this show. But the good news is we will be here the same time, same station next week. But until then, go win today, win this week, and we'll see you next time.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.